Welcome back to World Journey family. Today, I'm not going to talk about traveling with my family, but I am going to talk about something related, and that is traveling with my team, with my work group. And actually, that has involved traveling with my family too, because there is no secret that I absolutely love cruising. I've been cruising since I'm trying to remember if I was 8 or 9 technically. I think I was 9 the first time that I ever cruised, and I've been cruising my whole life. I've found that it's a great way to travel, specifically with a group of people with varied interests. And so when I was growing up, the reason that my family would cruise is because we had 5 members of our family, my parents, and 3 girls with very different interests, very different personalities. Yes, cabins are small, and we traveled for a long time with 5 of us in a cabin. Eventually, my parents decided that the 3 girls would get our own cabin when we were in the height of our teen years. But even then, 3 girls in a cabin's a lot. And so people are amazed by that. But what's great is that you then live in the whole cruise ship. And we were able to travel and have our own space and go do various activities on a cruise. For that reason, I've always seen cruises as a great option when you're traveling with a group that does have varied interests and are going to want to do different types of activities. So therefore, I not only want to share my love of traveling on YouTube, but we love sharing it with all the people we love. We have at various times gone on cruises. My husband and I, when right after we got engaged, we went on a cruise with his brother and sister-in-law. We've last year, the first time that we did a cruise with my team, brought his parents, and then this time, and then I've gone on a couple cruises now with my sister-in-law too. And so, and lots of cruises with my family and with a group from my mom's work. And so, my sister actually got married at a port of call on a cruise ship and took a group of, I think there were like 30 of us that went on a European cruise for her wedding. So, group travel is a lot of fun. So let's talk here. I was going to put this on here. Planning a group cruise for work is kind of what I'm going to call this one. So let's talk about some of the questions that you might have. First, should we take a cruise for work? Is that even something you should do? I actually have 2 different groups that I work with. And I would say one of the groups is kind of more likely to be excited about it than the other. One group is going to be really, really worried about taking the time off and being away, and the other, we all work remotely to start with, and so it's easier to get away. And so just thinking about what would that mean for your entire group. I mean, really, that's it, your entire group to be away. And if it's not plausible for your whole group to be away for several days, then this might be more difficult for your group. The other thing that we have talked about as our team is, are people going to bring their loved ones, or if they're not going to bring their immediate household, is your team the type that can be away from their loved ones, right? I was surprised the first time that we did this. I was like, okay, we're going to pay for you to come. If you choose to bring your family, you're going to have to pay for them. I've been shocked that the vast majority of our team has brought their family. In many cases, they're bringing significant others or children. Occasionally, they're bringing friends. We actually had 2 of our employees this time that brought a friend and did not bring their significant other. Somebody's significant other couldn't get off work, and so they brought their parents. We've had several parents come. That's really fun. But yeah, most people have brought somebody with them, not 100% of the time, but a lot of our employees have. And so deciding that too is, are you just taking your employees, or are you going to give them the opportunity to bring family members? And if they are bringing significant others and friends and that sort of thing, are you paying for those as well? We actually do not, but if they bring loved ones, they can get our group rate still. And they're like if we if there are perks, group perks, then those loved ones do get the advantage of those group perks. The next thing is, what can we pay for? This is always kind of like a conundrum. Obviously, if you're going to require people to come, then you have to pay for a lot more. You have to pay for anything that would be required. For us, it's changed a little bit depending on the year, but we're going to pay for the cruise, the tax fees and port fees, and then the internet because we are working remotely. We're a tech-based business, and so if we're going to require them to do any work, it's like, hey, it's optional for you to come, but if you come, you're going to have to use internet. So we do that. And then because our employees are flying in, we do offer to pay for flights. But if they're going to do that, we do need them to choose the cheapest flight. And if they want to choose a more expensive flight, then they're going to have to cover that additional cost, is how we do it. But there is a lot more that you could choose to pay for, if depending on how much you can, and how often you're going to do this. Like I said, you could pay for their loved ones to come. You could pay for photo packages. You could pay for drink packages. You could pay for a lot, but those costs can add up really, really quickly. Do we need a travel agent? I was very anti using a travel agent for a long time. I know how to find a good deal on a cruise. We didn't use a travel agent growing up, so I really did not like the idea of using a travel agent because, well, why would we? I can call the cruise line myself. Um, the first time I used a travel agent, I was trying to plan a group cruise through Princess, and they required me to use a travel agent. And to be honest, it was a horrible experience. They required me to go through a specific company. They were very unresponsive. They said they had booked rooms, and then I found out they hadn't. And then what was left was a much more expensive category. They would just like it was just an absolute horrible experience. I was like, see, I'm never using a travel agent again. And then we found Julie, our current travel agent. She is amazing. If you need her contact information, let me know. But she's so responsive. And having a responsive travel agent has saved us so much time. I'm like, here's what we're looking at. And she like finds us options for potential cruises. So we've now planned a couple different group cruises, both for work and not, with her. And she's able to find cruises, itineraries that I hadn't considered. She's able to get us good deals. Most importantly, she's able to call and spend hours on the phone with these cruises for us, so that I don't have to spend hours on the phone. And that time saving factor, like time is valuable, especially when you're planning one for work, because you might be using work hours. It doesn't necessarily cost any extra. They get a little bit from the cruise line, is how they get paid. And that's super, super valuable. So I actually do recommend using a travel agent for a group cruise. It can be helpful, but make sure that you're finding one that's very, very quick to communicate with you and understands the value of good communication. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. I love my travel agent now. Um, when you are planning the trip, one of the first things you're going to have to decide is on which cruise you're going to do. You do want to plan it out ahead of time. This most recent one that we took, we had planned a little bit, only, I can't remember, maybe like 6 months ahead of time. That was a problem for us, because it was hard to get the dining time that we wanted for our group that long. We did end up all getting to have dining together. I like to have dinner together. It did work out, but it was like right up to the wire getting us all dining times together. For a while, they had half of us having dinner at the same time and half of us not. And like, I don't like that. So you have more options as far as like types of rooms, goodies, all the things, when you have more time. When you have when you're planning in advance. Um, a definite thing to consider is going to be your cruise line. There are lots and lots of cruise line options, and they all have their pros and cons. For a work trip, I start out really looking at a couple different ones. I mean, I've looked at a lot of them, but for me, cost wise, Carnival was an obvious choice because they have a really good entry point cost wise. Until my most recent experience, I was a huge fan of Carnival for an entry level, because of the price point and because it was a decent experience and an introduction to cruising. It's not necessarily my personal favorite for our vacations. However, we had a pretty horrible experience. I do want to do another video on that. There were our most recent trip, there were a lot of like small issues, but small issues add up big time. A lot of people on the ship were saying it was their last trip with Carnival. Our biggest issues really were, we had a team member in a wheelchair, and those issues were, I just have no words. Like they were something I can't overlook. So we will not take Carnival probably ever again, certainly never for a group and definitely not when any member of my party may have any sort of mobility issues. And what I will say, if you're sitting here like, well, that doesn't apply to me, last year I wouldn't have thought that would apply to me. And then, what was it, like it was just a couple of weeks, like 2, 3 weeks. It was less than a month before we were going on our trip. On one of our cruises, my husband tore his meniscus. He ended up in a wheelchair for a cruise that we went on. Wheelchair slash um, uh, crutches. He was moving between the two of them, but we wouldn't have anticipated that a member of our party was going to have mobility issues, and yet I ended up on one of our cruises, one of our smaller cruises last year with a member of our party with mobility issues. And so that's why I'm like, I can't see that I would ever go on Carnival again, because I can't, when I book a cruise, guarantee that I wouldn't have a member of my party with mobility issues. You just can't always predict that. Now I know when I'm planning for this particular work group that I'm generally going to have at least one person with mobility issues, but I also know at any time some member of my party I could end up with more members of my party with mobility issues. That's something that happens, and I quite frankly think that cruise ships should be prepared for it. So other other options, MSC is a favorite of mine, and they're having more and more options in the United States market. It's a little limiting that right now their ships in the United States only go out of Florida or New York. The Miraviglia that goes out of New York right now is like my favorite ship I've ever been on. I love that ship. So if you can get your team to New York for a reasonable price, love that ship. But they just don't have as many options yet for itineraries as some of the other cruise lines. We are looking at, I think we're going to take the Seascape class, Seascape, Seashore, and Seaside. Ships are also awesome. We went on the Seascape this summer for a work group, and it was fantastic. So I think that my team for next year, we voted this week, and I think that we are going to take MSC next year. And then the other one, Royal Caribbean, my travel agent opened my eyes to it. It looks on paper like it's going to be slightly more expensive than Carnival or MSC, but they have some incredible group rates. And I did MSC. I mentioned my sister had gotten married on a ship. It was a royal ship, so we did a group there. It wasn't a work group, and I certainly wasn't organizing it. But we had a really positive experience as a group on a Royal Caribbean ship before. So that's another really good one to look at. I would say most of the others I've seen are a little bit more expensive. Of course, with more expensive, you're going to get a lot more bells and whistles, fancier food, fancier entertainment, all of that. But if you're looking for a really affordable option for a work group, those are 3 good affordable options. Then when you're planning which cruise you're going to take, look at the locations you go to. Think about, again, the vibe of your group and what kinds of places your group is going to enjoy. Are they going to want a nice, calm, private island? I really like the calmness of MSC's private island. My team has really expressed like enjoying just kind of hanging out on the beach. Royal Caribbean has a much more exciting private island. On the other hand, if you have people that really want to try to go to as many different countries as possible, there are a lot of really good, really good places. This time, we have a team member who's from Jamaica, and so we loved going there because she was able to give us tons of tips before we went, and that made it like, I don't know, for me that made it extra exciting to go there after her and her mom had like given us some great tips. So think about those sorts of things. In the United States, we have lots of other ports that cruise ships do go out of. So you have, lots of options if you're a US based business. If you can fly your team to like Europe and stuff, the opportunities are endless for places that cruises can go. Something else that's really important for us when we're choosing a cruise to go on is sea days. For us, this is also our retreat. And so we do work. And if we only have one sea day, we're going to be having to pack too much in. And so for us, we found the sweet spot is to have 2 sea days that we're working about 4 hours each day. That way we're getting in enough work to feel like, the first day we do like a little feel good type 2-hour-ish meeting after dinner that we kind of set the tone. I try to keep that one pretty positive, like what's gone well lately for you at work, who are our ideal clients, rah, go team. It's really actually like I'm being all cheesy about it, but it's like my favorite moment of the whole cruise. Like, yay, we get to see each other in person because our team is remote. It really is like the best moment. But then those 2 half days of work, For me, 2 sea days has been our sweet spot. And so, really looking at itineraries when we're choosing a cruise, that is super important to us. And so when we're planning our trip, like that's critical. Getting ready to go on the trip. For new cruisers, the last couple of years, we've been trying to give people some tips for cruising because people might be nervous. And so, talking to them a little bit about what to expect, things like should I get a drink package, should I not? And talking through kind of the pros and cons of that. I try not to make decisions for people because, of course, I have my opinions, but kind of sharing some of that information with them, talking a little bit about. About those sorts of things is good. And then I like to have a loose agenda for what we're going to do, but we learned our lesson the first time where we're like, here are the hours we're going to work on sea days. And then we got on, and both myself and the other leader of our trainings have children. And what we found is Kids Club was not open kind of the times that we had anticipated. And so this time, what we did is we said, hey, for each sea day, we're going to work about 4 hours. These are about the subjects that we anticipate covering. This is a loose agenda. We will tell you the night before on WhatsApp. We had everybody download WhatsApp. We created the thread for everybody prior to getting on the ship so that, again, we paid for everybody's internet. So everybody was able to connect via internet to WhatsApp. And then when we got on the ship the night before, we gave them the exact time. Once we had the exact plan for Kids Club, here is the exact time and place that we're going to meet and the exact like itinerary. And then so that's how we firmed up the agenda. Once we're on the ship, kind of figuring out that balance of how much time do you spend together versus not, we make it really clear, like, other than that work time, this is your trip. You make it your own. We're here to like learn from one another and spend time with one another during those few hours. Like, you're going to have about 4 hours of work time these 2 days and about 2 hours that first night. Other than that, like, if you want to just make this vacation that you're mostly spending with your family that you brought, go for it. If you want to spend a whole lot of time getting to know your coworkers, go for it. And we did find that there's variety. Some people want more togetherness than others. It is important to me that we get assigned to the same tables for dinner. And how we do it is like they give us a couple different tables and the same waiters, and we kind of move between the tables. And we warn them the first night, like, hey, we're going to move around these tables. I got that from the other couple of group cruises I had done before I did work cruises, and that works really well. We come together at dinner, we talk about our days. If somebody doesn't want to come to dinner because they want to go eat up on the buffet or they want to go to a specialty restaurant, that's fine. No judgment. We've had a couple people not come to dinner. That's totally fine. But we have that opportunity to come together, not just the employees, but that's where we really get to know their loved ones too. And so that dinner is like my favorite because we're not talking about work too much. We're really just talking about, like, how was your day? What did you do in the Cayman Islands today? That sort of thing. So I love that. It's also this year what we did. I mentioned WhatsApp. This year we learned our lesson, and we had not just a WhatsApp group for our employees, but we also had a WhatsApp for all the family members because the first year they really could only plan like a dinner, like, hey, who wants to go do this thing with me this year? That way anybody could have a conversation about, like, hey, I'm going to the comedian, who wants to do it? And people are able to be like, well, my wife is up hanging out with her coworkers writing, but I'll come with you, that sort of thing. And so some of the spouses were able to get in on hanging out with people too more and getting to know us. Along those lines, for my employees who they really have the choice of like taking PTO for the time that they're, other than those few hours that they're required to work, they can take PTO. They can take some of it unpaid, or some people choose like every day to do some additional work on the ship. That's fine. I kind of encourage them to take a lot of time off. But for some people, there was a group of a few people that every night, like, we're hanging out in one area, writing together and doing some work together. And they're like, it's so much fun to be able to co-work in person. And I remember one night, like, telling my colleague as we're like hanging out in the comedy show, I'm like, I feel so bad. Like, we're the boss, like, we're their boss, and like, we're watching comedy and they're working. And she's like, yeah, but they're choosing to. We're not requiring them to work, and they're having fun working together. Like, okay, that's true. So that's something else too, that we try to give them a lot of control over that. So yeah, I hope that's helpful for anybody else that's considering taking a group on a work trip or on a work cruise. Oh, and one more thing that's fun. Years and years ago, when my mom took a group for work on a cruise, I was newly married and was the only way I was ever going to be able to afford to go to Alaska on an Alaskan cruise. But my husband and I joined that trip, and my dad, who this was just his personality, he was always going to get a deal and talk anybody into anything. He went up to the spa and they had like this thermal suite, and he went and he just told them, well, I have a whole group of people and we'll come. If you can make us a deal, we got you a bunch of people that will join your thermal suite over there, but only if you make us a deal. Otherwise, we're all walking. And they did. And we got this great deal on the thermal suite. And so when my employees and I boarded the ship this year, I was like, well, let's try a pull a David Oliver. Let's go up there. And we got a fantastic deal, really, really good deal actually, on the thermal suite. And so we took stock before we went up. I explained what the thermal suite is. If you're not familiar, it's like steam room, sauna, and two different levels of the sauna, and then like these beautiful heated lounge chair type things that overlook the water, and like some like showers, and it's just a really neat area of the spa that you can have unlimited access the whole cruise just to relax. And so I said, like, who would be interested if we got a deal? We chose a few of us to go up there, small group, and yeah, we made a deal. Like the person in charge of the steam room, I just was like, hey, we have a group of potentially 10 of us that would be interested in joining. What kind of deal can you make us? And they made us an incredible deal. All of that to say, if you have a subset of your work group who might be interested in something like a deal at the spa or some other activity on the ship, don't be afraid to ask for it, because there is power in numbers. And basically what they did is they took like the best deal, like basically the deal that they would give on a shorter cruise, and gave that to us because and he did say, like, hey, you have to have X number of that group that'll sign up. And we're like, no problem. For the deal you gave us, we can get that many people. So don't hesitate to ask for that, and be willing to use the power of numbers.